So today I'm talking with a friend of 20 years. This is Sensei Charlie McGinnis, who's a 7th Dan Shihan Dojo Cho of Aikido of Cincinnati, past chairman of the United States Aikido Federation, and current board member of the International Aikido Federation, also known as the IAF. Did I get all your, did I get that right?
That's enough.
It's enough, he says. Well,
That's enough.
Thanks for spending some time with us today.
No problem.
So I want to start first by sharing, as I'm having people on that I've known a long time in Aikido, and it's like, okay, we can talk about what people are doing now with this situation, a little bit about dojos and your unique perspective, talking to many countries about this. But I want to go back and just share with you how I first met you and what I think when I see you at winter camp and we laugh and you share stories. I always remember going 20 years ago to your dojo, your previous location, which was like enormous, and just remembering the size of the dojo, the mat size, the members, walking right in through the front door, and to the left on the wall was 40 plus Udansha certificates. That's what I think of when I think of you, first and foremost. That's amazing.
You know, I think it's hard to believe that I've helped so many people, along the path. And for many of them now, they're walking their own path in terms of how they're discovering and working with the art. And it's, to me, it's frankly unbelievable, but very gratifying.
Yeah. And you guys just have some great people in your dojo. We have a strong history. Our chief instructor has ties in Cincinnati, as you know, and we just love going there every year. And I can't wait to see the new location. And I have to apologize for not getting there yet, because I hear that's even more amazing.
It is incredible. It's also created some incredible problems as we begin to look towards a possible reopening, because it is such a big area and trying to deal with some of the issues that creates. I mean, our mat's 3,200 square feet, and we also have a wooden practice floor of about 3,000 square feet, 3 different bathrooms, 2 changing areas. It just becomes really becomes a real issue in how we deal with that. And we've actually been spending a number of meetings over the last month or so just with our board just to deal with that issue.
Yeah, so let's get right into it with
Sure.
with COVID-19. Let's start with your dojo. By the way, I don't know how new your website is. I went there to check some things, and it looks cool. I like it.
It's new, a few glitches, but we're working on it.
It's solid though. What are you guys doing just week to week in your own dojo to sort of weather the storm?
We've been doing weekly Zoom meetings for the members, fairly well attended. I think the most number we've had on the line at one time is about 30, which is pretty good. We've just, over the last 2 weeks, our youth instructors have started online classes at least once a week for the kids, which is, I think, hugely important. And we've been, a couple of things we did is we immediately set up an Aikido of Cincinnati members group, and have been posting various videos and some instructional videos, specifically with regard to weapons kata, which are part of our curriculum, in addition to the USAF curriculum. So trying to reach out to our students that way. We frankly are now looking at possibly being able to start some outdoor training. It's an open question, considering the governor's guidelines. They do allow groups of 10 or less to gather with social distancing outside and appropriate safeguards. And I've been talking to Sal LaCourte in Cleveland, and we both have calls into Columbus, which is the governor's, our health department office, to get some clarification as to whether that would fall within the guidelines. We have not been able to get any response, and frankly, we're considering within the next 10 days of holding our first class. We'll break it. I'll have 2 instructors, so that if we have more than 8 people show up, we'll break it into 2 groups, appropriately distanced apart, and just see how that goes. We have no instruction whatsoever from our state with regard to actual opening to physical dojo. And obviously the issues of contact versus non-contact are going to be huge. And whatever happens, once contact is allowed, we'll probably break our classes into 50-50 contact, no contact, so that people can be comfortable in doing the type of training they want to do.
Yeah, that's good. I always ask this question because I'm really curious to see what other schools are doing, and quite honestly, I'm trying to, as we say, borrow some techniques or borrow some ideas, because I was telling Penny Burnett this last week. The first virtual class I did, and my background with video and production, no problem. But speaking to a laptop webcam in an empty room was surreal. It was weird.
Right.
And she shared something that I don't know if you caught this, but Peter's doing is he'll do a technique, both uke and nage, and you have to guess the technique. That's
Nice.
kind of cool. That's kind of neat. I like that.
And that's a wonderful actual training tip. In my initial training and when I went through my Kenshusei program in Yoshinkai Aikido, one of the things that our instructor made us do is demonstrate techniques just as nage without a partner, and then demonstrate the ukemi. And his thought was it really shows as to whether you have an understanding of the technique or not.
Right.
And it's an excellent way to train, and would urge people to give that a try. And was really pleased to hear Peter was using that, because it's not something I think many people do on a regular basis, but it's something that I think can be very valuable.
Yeah, and then Penny said if he makes a mistake, whether he's doing it on purpose, I mean, he is on the technical committee, so
Right.
if he makes a mistake, you have to point out the mistake. So
Right.
it's kind of cool. We're breaking things up into 3 quadrants, if you will. People are working on key development and breathing at home, obviously, to de-escalate the stress level of being cooped up and not getting on the mat. Obviously, we're doing what a lot of people are doing, just basic Tai Sabaki, some basic ukemi exercises, trying to be cognizant that while I have some students that have actual tatami at home, like just a rollout or probably half dozen do, a lot of them don't. So they're on hardwood or carpet. So we have to be cognizant of that. And then weapons, you got ceiling clearance issues if you're not outside. So
I've only broken a couple of chandeliers.
There you
Seriously.
go, right? You haven't been training in Aikido long enough unless you break something with a Joe, right?
Right.
For sure. But I actually did I don't know if you guys are doing this, but I did all the Gokyu techniques with a boken.
Nice.
So that was interesting. Yeah, I think for some people that haven't seen enough Aikido, know the roots of sword and whatnot. So that was kind of unique. But what about I want to ask you this, because this is important to me, and I find that the longer we're off the mat, the less, the more stamina, conditioning, just you know what I'm saying, we lose. And what are you guys doing? Because just doing Tai Sabaki and swinging weapons isn't going to make that happen, as you know. So what are you doing to make sure people are staying, as fit as they can off the mat?
So it's been a challenge for me. Weirdly enough, March 10th, I had a complete rotator cuff repair done. All the major muscles were totally torn. Not doing Aikido, believe it or not. So I was going to be off the mat anyway, and frankly would still not be able to train. I'm in taking physical therapy 3 times a week, but obviously I've been urging our students to do other types of exercise that they can do. Sean Dansby and Charlie Levine, 2 of our black belts, have been posting on Instagram and on Facebook pages various conditioning things that people can do in order to try and keep muscle mass, flexibility. I love to watch Anna Gallagher from Aikido Center of Atlanta. She does some really interesting work on flexibility, and which is, I turned 70 this year, and flexibility is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
But I think for everyone, that's something to pay attention to. There's such a wealth of information out there for our members to tap into, both from USAF dojos and others, which I would, I think can help provide some inspiration for people to do what they find works for them in terms of trying to keep some of their stamina, strength, etc.
Yeah, you bring up some good points. Anna's, when I think of flexibility, Anna's the first person that comes to the mind. I used to have a yoga background, and
right.
she can move her body in ways that I don't even understand, but she's doing a great job. I definitely applaud her. I actually snagged an idea from overseas, and I want to segue to that in a second with your experience with IAF, but there's a very large organization, I want to say out of Singapore or China, Philip Lee Shihan, started it, and his two sons are fourth dans and young and fit and just really, really solid Aikidoka. And I watch them, and I started talking to them offline. So they put out this Tabata workout, which is basically 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. And it's basic movements like standing squats, push-ups, reverse lunges, mountain climbers. And we're using that weekly. And
nice.
that is keeping the heart rate up and keeping your core strong. So I'll share that with you offline. You guys may enjoy
I'd
that.
really like to see that and probably share it with my students also.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I want to talk about now is your first, what I understand the IAF to be, and I want you to give me the actual textbook definition, because a lot of people I think don't understand what the organization is. Like I talk to other members, my peers that think, oh, I'm a member of the IAF. And I'm like, well, the USAF is a member of the IAF.
What is it? Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So kind of like the USAF, if you join the organization, if you're in a dojo that's a USAF member and you test, now you're a USAF member. Talk about the difference between IAF and USAF and how that all works, please.
So, sure. A little history, actually, probably. Back in the late 70s, the Nidai Doshu at that time had wanted us to become more involved in the world of sport, but as a non-competitive physical sport. But in order to do that, you had to have an international federation with one member from each country. And frankly, that was what got us more or less to form the USAF in some respects, with the four major Shihan at the time coming together: Chiba Sensei, Yamada Sensei, Kanai Sensei, and Tohei Sensei. And basically, it's an umbrella organization. We currently have about 60 members. We have 16 more that will be joining as members at the next Congress, which has now been postponed till probably September of 21. It was supposed to be September of 20, but it's been canceled. And basically, over the years, has been primarily dealing with the world of sport through AIMS and other now Olympic connected organizations, for which we are now an Olympic connected organization of the Olympic movement. And there are the combat games is one thing that's happened over the years. You may have seen some of the videos posted on the IAF website, which are definitely worth watching, as presenting Aikido as a non-competitive sport. Though we don't like to use that term, but to the outside world, that's what it appears to be, though Budo is obviously much more than just sport. And an interesting thing, just in the last 2 years, we have had official recognition that Aikido is non-competitive, and there will never be any future push for there to be any kind of competition within the art, within our presentation. So that's important. But it also provides a forum for members to come together, raise issues, etc. And frankly, that is a fairly recent occurrence. Within the last 4 years, since I've been a member of the directing committee, we have been meeting at Hambo Dojo with members of representatives of the Aikikai Foundation, Dojo Cho, Doshu, and then the various board members of the IAF, to talk about a number of issues that are confronting all our members, how we increase the reach of Aikido throughout the world, issues regarding bringing groups within countries together to work more cooperatively, as up to now there can only be one member per country, and in the United States, the USAF. However, we've been reaching out and are currently working on a agreement with both the California Aikido Association and the AWA with Adi Sato Shihan to cooperate together in IAF matters, and that's progressing and really is an important step. Most people, this is probably the first they've heard about it. But through various memorandums of understanding, cooperative agreements, we've been trying to get various groups to work together. We've also been raising issues that are very important to all our member countries. And sometimes we think issues we have, for instance, in the US, there are 17, 18, I think 19 Hanbu recognized organizations, some with as little as 2 dojo. And it does create problems, not just in this country, but in other countries, Russia, France, Sweden, Netherlands, etc. As Hanbu recognizing lots of different organizations actually can help create a fracturing of other Hanbu recognized organizations. So that's been an issue that's been quite important, and we've talked to Hanbu Dojo about that. Also looking, trying to do long-term planning as to the future of Aikido and what Hanbu Dojo and the IAF can do to support Aikido throughout the world, support countries where Aikido is just being introduced, especially in Africa, and some areas in the Middle East and Southeast Asia, where Aikido has not been very prevalent, but is now beginning to spread. So looking at that, there have been various working groups on Aikido for people with disabilities, youth matters, with some youth seminars now occurring with 500-600 participant youth in Europe, as well as a number of other things have taken place. So that's probably more than you wanted to know, but it's really a way to bring our members together throughout the world and to get them to cooperate and work towards the future of Aikido, share ideas, etc.
What's been your most memorable experience just being part of IAF to this point?
I think, well, the congresses are always very interesting. George Kennedy and I first went to one in 2012. In 2016, as the IAF representative for the USAF, I was elected to the board of directors. There are 9 of us. And in between congresses, we basically run the organization. The most memorable part is getting to meet and work with incredible Aikidoists from around the world. The connections and friendships I've made are really very special. And it's interesting that so many of the problems that we think are peculiar to our country and the issues we face are really universal. Over the last 8 weeks, I've talked to people from about 17 different countries, part during IAF meetings and others working group meetings on various issues. One of those is we're currently looking at providing support for Hanbu Dojo as they rewrite the international regulations. And what we're experiencing in this country, they're experiencing all over the world. The lockdowns or shutdowns, wearing masks as a sign of respect for our fellow Aikido practitioners, which is so important because we're protecting not so much ourselves, but the others around us, and is really part of Reigi, the type of basic Aikido respect that we should show to each other, is really quite widespread. One of the representatives, Leif Sunja, who is from Sweden, and works on hospital issues, has been very interesting because they've had a different approach, which is in some ways worked for them because they're a much more homogenous society, but they also have one of the highest per capita infection rates in the world, and their death rate is also pretty high per capita. So, you know, they're on one end of the spectrum, and then you have France, who's been very aggressive in terms of how they've dealt with their shutdown and enforcement, Italy, et cetera. So looking at that, and then what's Aikido going to look like when we come out on the other side of this? I mean, it's really a concern. We just did a questionnaire that was sent to all our IAF members over the last 3 weeks and just shared that with Dojo and Dojo Cho, Waka Sensei, this past week about concerns and really looking. Humble Dojo is very concerned. They want to look at what possible support they can offer, and IAF is now beginning to think. We're beginning to think about what can we do in a supportive way to help our members come out the other end on this. It's interesting, in France and in many places in Europe, during the summer, they don't train for about a month or two. We don't do that here, basically, for the most part. And in a country like France, where almost all the dojos are held in public buildings, so you don't have as much a concern of paying rent
right,
or overhead that we do. It's a little different issue, but for other countries, it's the same thing. How are you going to pay your bills? Are your members going to be there when you come out the other side of this, et cetera, is a huge worry. And many things we're doing here are being done throughout the world. I know in Netherlands just this week, they were given permission to reopen classes for children on a non-contact basis. So we'll see how that goes. But for almost everywhere else, there's only one country we're aware of that has never stopped training, and that's Taiwan. We think it's primarily because they've had such strict control and heavily enforced mask wearing and other ways of trying to make sure we keep our social distance in most cases. But in the dojo, they've continued their training, which we found pretty surprising. It's the only country in the world where we found this.
Yeah, it's interesting that perspective and your experience with the IAF. Just seeing what other countries are doing from a much bigger picture than a lot of us see. We just see what we read or choose to read or see on the news, and you have to make a judgment on that. So what I'm finding to be interesting is very similar to the political spectrum. Whether you're super left or super right, seems to be how you're thinking about what we're dealing with as Dojo Chos in our school. Some people I talk to was just open up and just go back to normal. Other people I talk to think the end of the world is coming and we'll never do Aikido again. And then there's a majority of us there's somewhere in the middle that are trying to take necessary precautions, be smart. I think the culture thing you mentioned is really key, right? Aikido is a Japanese martial art, and you've been to Asia many times. I mean, that's their culture of, take up just my space, cover myself. How long have Asians been wearing masks in general in public to be?
Forever.
Right.
right. Since at least I've been going.
So it's definitely going to change the way, I think in a good way, for us as Americans, as business owners, as Aikido people, on how we look at that. Just to, I think it's a good thing, believe it or not. And I'm taking an aggressive approach. I just bought 12 new uniforms yesterday. I'm like ready to go once we open up again. Did you see the email from Iwata this morning? Thought that was interesting.
No, I didn't.
So they're like, as you know, everybody knows who Iwata Company is in Tokyo, but they wrote an email just saying how sorry they felt for the Aikido community. They have to shut down temporarily, but they would like to do pre-orders on things you think you'll need in the future so that they can fix their inventory and kind of react and not be like 2 months from now you place an order and you got to wait 6 months. So they're trying to be proactive. You don't have to put money down. I thought that was really kind of smart. That was a good
tell you
thing.
one thing that's really interesting. First time I went to Iwata, I expected this big store and everything. It's like a small house with a little room in the front where you go in and have a couple of things shown. But wonderful people, great to deal with. But yeah, that kind of thing is we're seeing more and more. Yeah, I think that what you're talking about, culture, some of the culture wars we're dealing with in this country. I think when we're looking at our dojos, we have to deal with it within the context of the whole idea of mutual respect and protection of our uke. Again, for instance, we've developed a checklist for our dojo of high contact, low contact areas, sanitation that has to be done every day, those that will be done once a week. Temperature taking, we've purchased infrared forehead thermometers so that once people come in, we take their temperature. There's lots of hand sanitizer around the space.
Sure.
Closing down the water fountains, for instance, but we have a water bottle filler that people can use, just those sorts of things. But also, in terms, we do have some members that don't think you should have to wear masks, and my response is, so sorry. Aikido is respect for each other. For instance, I have, I'm over 70, I've had heart surgery, and I'll put out there, I have pre-diabetes. So have 3 comorbidities that, make things a little more dangerous for me. And we have other people in the dojo like that.
Sure.
And when you're wearing a mask in the dojo, you're doing it to protect me.
Right.
Right. And the other members who are training, so that we can continue to train together as a community and family. And it's annoying to have to wear them when we're training, no doubt about it. But at least until things settle down, and it's probably going to be a fairly extensive period of time, one of the things we will insist on is within the dojo, as an enclosed space, you're going to have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Not everyone's happy with that decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's whether it's, do you buy into your dojo culture, and you have to, everything stems from above. So you're the leader of your school, and a lot of ways Aikido in the world, and certainly USAF. So if you want to be a part of that, there's etiquette. We got to do the right thing. So I get it totally.
It's a new part of etiquette. Is, I think, a nice way. That's a nice way of looking at it, Jonathan. It really is just part of etiquette, and part of what allows us to train safely and take care of our partners.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time today. Any last thoughts as we wrap up for anybody out there? I mean, I'm so blessed to have met you, be a part of the United States Aikido Federation. I have so much fun with you at winter camp, story after story. Some I can't share on the podcast, but it's, I always laugh with you. And I'll leave you with this. So if I say a year, tell me what you think of. You ready? 2004.
2004.
Spring.
It was, spring seminar at our dojo, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, that was the weekend Kanai Sensei passed away.
Oh my God, yes.
And how do I know that like vividly is I was a first Q at your seminar testing for
That's
Shodan.
Right.
Yamada Sensei couldn't make it, obviously.
Right.
So I just remember, I want to share this because it's fun. It's a great memory for me, but you're conducting the Shodan test with Demko Sensei and Meadow Sensei. And I was up there, and we got to the Randori. And in our school, when we practiced Randori, Nage would come out, Ukes would line up, and as soon as Nage bowed, we start. That's what I did. I ran out, and you're like, whoa, come back. I had to come back. It made me restart. It was so much fun. And then we do the Randori, and then at the end, I'm sitting there, and I don't want to move again because I already messed up once. And you're like, do you want to go again? That's what you told me.
Just
I always
curious.
remember that. It was awesome. Great. I have it on
I do remember that.
VHS. Yeah.
Oh my God.